A very warm welcome to all our viewers. I'm Dr. Shatil from the clinical engagement team here at Docplexus. Welcome to our World Heart Day special webinar on preventive cardiology, lifestyle and heart diseases. The heart, an organ that tirelessly beats throughout our lives, is at the core of our well-being. However, in the face of modern lifestyles characterized by sedentary habits, stress, and unhealthy dietary choices, the health of our heart is under constant threat. Heart diseases have become a leading cause of morbidity and mortality worldwide, emphasizing the urgency of adopting preventive measures. Today's discussion is particularly timely, and we explore the intersection of lifestyle and heart diseases. Our distinguished guest today is Dr. Amitav Banerjee, who is a professor and head Department of Community Medicine at the Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune. Dr. Amitav Banerjee served in the Indian Armed Forces from 1978 to 2005. He started working as a professor and subsequently as the head of the Department of Community Medicine at Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Pune. Dr. Banerjee has published over 100 papers in national and international journals and has undertaken several funded research projects. He has also delivered several keynote addresses at national and international conferences. We welcome you, Dr. Banerjee, and now I would request you to take this session ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on Docplexus platform to discuss an important topic on lifestyle and heart disease. I am an expert in preventive medicine, so I will be speaking mostly from the preventive point of view, the data, the how we go about it, how to use the data, what are the individual level and what are the community level measures which can be taken to reduce the increasing trends. I'll be presenting some trends of heart disease, and basically I'll be talking about what lifestyle changes we can do. I'll give an overview of the types of heart disease we have and what is meant by cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is a broad term which includes a lot of disease, and many of them can be controlled by at individual level by lifestyle factors. So my topic is preventive cardiology, lifestyle and heart disease. So I'll be giving, as I said, global burden. Then what are the modifiable risk factors? There are certain risk factors, actually non-communicable disease like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, neurological disorders, arthritis. They don't have a single cause. They have got multiple causes, and none of the causes are essential and sufficient, but they are still causes. They increase the probability of a person getting that condition. So that's why they are not exactly called causes, they are called risk factors. So certain risk factors are non-modifiable, like gender, like age, certain genetic traits. Of course, even if a person has got genetic traits for cardiovascular disease, by lifestyle modification, the person can compensate and still be free from disease. So there are some partly modifiable and some are not modifiable. Age, you cannot go back in age, but genetic traits can be modifiable by lifestyle. Then there are certain paradoxes which brings out that no cause is certain. There is no certainty in a cause. The French paradox and Israeli paradox I will discuss, because there are certain communities which are having so-called risk factors, but still they are free from heart disease. And there are other communities which have no risk factors, so-called risk factors, which we assume to be risk factors, and still they are having a higher rate. So there are two examples I'll be giving, the French paradox and the Israeli paradox. I mean, it's a work in progress. The risk factors, we are work in progress. Then neo culprits is the sugar consumption has gone up, sitting because the life occupations have changed. We are using more automobiles, we are cycling less, we are walking less, or labor saving devices are at home as well as in office, and that is giving rise to physical inactivity. And interpersonal relationship is the social cohesion, that also we are gradually, the younger generations or even our generation, gradually we are going from a individual centered life where the family and the community and other social networks are gradually getting diluted. And there are some studies which shows that this social cohesion, social network is a preventive, is a lifestyle. Good relationships, good interpersonal relationship, good friends or family, they are protective against, not only protective against cardiovascular disease, they reduce the risk of heart disease, as well as the recovery is better with a social networking system, social support. Then another trend which is coming are pharmacological interventions for lifestyle diseases. We are increasingly becoming a passive generation, so we'll be discussing how the temptation is there towards passivity. Even for, instead of lifestyle modification, there are market forces which are giving pharmacological solutions. So we'll just see the pros and cons of that. So as I said, cardiovascular disease is a blanket term. So it includes CSD or coronary heart disease, which would be a main here, which is known as myocardial infarction, and pain chest, angina pectoris when the blood supply is compromised, and sudden death, coronary death. So this is what is known in lay terms as a heart attack. Then also the vessels, more or less etiology is same. They supply the brain also, where compromised blood supply to the brain can cause cerebrovascular disease or stroke. We know that stroke also is a major problem nowadays. Then peripheral artery disease is the diseases of the limbs, particularly heavy smokers and all, they can get compromised blood supply to the peripheral limbs and gangrene, and sometimes even in diabetes. Then aortic atherosclerosis, the large vessels in the abdomen, aorta, or in the chest, thorax, they can have atherosclerosis, that is deposition of cholesterol, and a process of atherosclerosis sets in, which can damage the lining and cause a rupture, aneurysm. That is called aneurysm, and can cause hemorrhage and death. So these are some of the cardiovascular diseases. Mostly we'll be discussing the lifestyle and heart diseases. So this is the global burden of disease over the past decade. Figures 1990 and 2019 in millions. This is at the global level. So it has almost doubled. The prevalence of cardiovascular disease is 271 million. Now it is 523 billions. Of course, the population has also increased. So that is one reason. And of course, aging population. Then cardiovascular deaths also 12.1 million. It has increased to 18.6 million. So the deaths are not as much as the cases. So that means we are having better treatment nowadays. And global DALYs is disability adjusted life years lost. So that is the, not only the length of life is important, the quality of life is more important. So there is a measure known as disability adjusted life years. That is the amount of years of life lost which has free from disability, quality life lost, free from disability. So that has also doubled, that 17.7 million to 30.0. The people the deaths may have decreased, but the quality may not have increased. So that is reflected in the increased loss of disability adjusted life years. From 17.7 million, it has become 34.4 million. And deaths from ischemic heart disease and DALY lost is given in the right side, and the stroke. So large amount of burden of quality of life is contributed by heart disease and stroke. So these are the proportion of cardiovascular disease by cause. So if you see the bulk of the cause, that is the blue part of the segment, is contributed by ischemic heart disease, make up half, and stroke is 1/3. That is the maroon color. Maroon color is the major part, second major part. The blue color on top is the major part of coronary artery disease or ischemic heart disease. Ischemia means lack of blood supply, and because lack of blood supply may be due to atherosclerosis of the coronary arteries, which supplies the heart, and heart has to pump 24/7, and any blood supply, low blood supply in the coronaries can cause myocardial infarction. That is the ischemia or death of a heart muscle, and that can give rise to heart attack, as called in a lay term, or ischemic heart disease. So that is the major. So all mostly that requires prevention, and the same measures can also prevent the stroke also, because it both the pathophysiology is atherosclerosis and lumen. The lumen of the vessels become narrower. So, and the lumen, if it becomes narrower, the blood flow will be compromised. So lifestyle, when we are talking of lifestyle, it relates to the modifiable risk factors. Many risk factors for cardiovascular disease, and particularly ischemic heart disease or coronary artery disease, are modifiable by specific preventive measures. They had a study, global study, many countries, inter-heart study of patients from 52 countries, identified some 9 potential modifiable risk factors that accounted for over 90% of the population attributable risk of a first myocardial infarction. MI is myocardial infarction. So 9 major factors have been listed here. Topmost is smoking. Smoking is the major cause of ischemic heart disease. Of course, we knew it earlier. It is a cause of lung cancer and other cancers, but it causes atherosclerosis. The carbon monoxide also damages the blood vessels, and smoking cessation is one of the major lifestyle factors. First of all, prevent young people from taking up smoking, because tobacco addiction is very difficult to give up, and tobacco addiction starts early in life and tracks into middle age and late age. Smoking is the number one. Second is dyslipidemia. Dyslipidemia, particularly very high serum cholesterol, familial dyslipidemia. There has been a lot of change in the paradigms regarding the cholesterol and heart hypothesis. Earlier, there was this thinking that high saturated fat is the culprit, and that gives rise to dyslipidemia. Now there is an understanding that 50% of the cholesterol produced is by the body itself, endogenous. So dietary cholesterol may not have that much impact as thought earlier. And there were also concerns that industry or market forces diverted the attention from smoking, diverted the attention from sugar consumption towards saturated fat being the culprit. So now there's a gradual shift in the diet heart hypothesis, which says that perhaps saturated fat is less to be blamed than sugar and smoking. Of course, smoking was accepted earlier. Sugar, because after the guidelines given by the American Heart Association of limitation of saturated fat in the for heart disease, a large number of cases, people, sugar consumption increased, and the cases of obesity and coronary artery disease also increased. So this is one paradigm shift we have come to realize. Then hypertension, high blood pressure. High blood pressure also in the long term requires control. To some extent, it can be controlled by physical activity and body weight, controlling the body weight, controlling the obesity, diet and physical activity. Otherwise, it requires monitoring and control by drugs, antihypertensive drugs, because it is something like there is no symptom. Hypertension may not have symptoms, but wear and tear of the vessels, wear and tear of the heart, and it's something like a tire pressure. Your car, immediately there is no problem, but if the tire pressure is not adequate, the wear and tear of the tire and other things get adversely affected. So hypertension is one of the risk factors. Diabetes is also one of the risk factors, for which can be to some extent modified by lifestyle. Lifestyle modification can reduce the requirement of anti-diabetic drugs. Similarly for hypertension. So and of course it has to be done under expert medical advice. So diabetes, also Indians, particularly Indians, because of genetic predisposition, because of a thrifty gene, and we are more prone a decade earlier to cardiovascular disease and diabetes and other chronic diseases associated with metabolic syndrome because of insulin resistance. And it is seen that lifestyle, particularly physical activity, reduces the insulin resistance. So lifestyle is important. Abdominal obesity, that is another problem. We Asians, particularly Indians and other Asians, have got a tendency to put on weight around the waist, central obesity. So this also is a predictor of metabolic syndrome, syndrome X. And so if we can control central obesity by exercise and diet, to a large extent, we can control the ischemic heart disease. Then psychosocial factors, as I briefly had mentioned, that particularly social relationships, good family life, good community life, good social networking has been shown to play an important part in reducing the risk of coronary artery disease. Then another important thing, which is consumption of fruits and vegetables. This also has got protective for lifestyle disorders like coronary artery disease and diabetes. So how many helpings, we have to explain to the lay person how many helpings of fruits and vegetables. So it is said that minimum 5 helpings of fruits or vegetable should be taken every day, and one helping is about 70 grams. So almost 350 to 500 grams of fresh fruits and vegetable should be consumed daily. It helps in preventing lifestyle diseases like heart disease. Too much of alcohol consumption. Alcohol is again there is a reports that small amounts of alcohol consumption is protective, moderate amount, but higher amount of alcohol consumption increases the blood pressure and predisposes to coronary artery disease. So better to avoid alcohol as far as possible, because it is very difficult to have to estimate what is small, what is high. So moderate to small amount of alcohol is protective. It causes vasodilatation, it may be relaxing, but regular alcohol consumption is a risk factor. And of course, lack of regular physical activity. Physical activity helps two ways. Directly, it improves the cardiac reserve, it improves the function of the lungs, and indirectly, it reduces weight, it controls the obesity. And thirdly, it leads to exercise. Physical exercise gives rise to mental stability, in the sense certain endorphins and others are released in the central nervous system, which has a calming effect as good as meditation or any other relaxation. So physical activity can also become addictive if, and how much physical activity, somebody may ask. So minimum 30 minutes a day, brisk activity, which causes either brisk walking, cycling, swimming, whichever gives you a light sweat. You don't have to sweat very heavily, but of course, those who have not done physical activity for a long time, they have to start gradually under medical supervision. So at least 30 minutes of physical activity every day, at least 3 times a week, preferably daily, at least 3 times a week. So, what are how much of it can be changed by lifestyle? I mean, can you change everything? So, this is the table 1990 and 2010 over the decade, 2019 over 2 decades. What is the change? So, the number one still remains the number one risk factor is high blood pressure, dietary intake, again, number two. Number three is high cholesterol. And number four is air pollution. These four places are still maintained over 20 years. Then tobacco. Tobacco has come down a little in 2019, just one rank. And high body mass has gone up. So actually, we are becoming a more obese generation. So otherwise, all other things are static. So one good news and one bad news. Tobacco consumption has fallen one rank in the past 20 years, but obesity has gained one rank in the past 20 years. So we are on par. I mean, risk factors like tobacco and because obesity has gone up because of affluence. Many countries have newly acquired economic growth and automobiles and other luxuries and comforts. Besides that, the market forces which are encouraging fast food, sedentary lifestyle. So all this has increased the obesity level. So obesity is going to be a major pandemic. And as I had mentioned earlier, atherosclerosis is responsible for almost all cases of coronary artery disease. Atherosclerosis is the lining of the vessels, which the plaque deposits, the cholesterol plaques, and there is damage to the endothelium reaction. This insidious progress begins with fatty streaks that are first seen in adolescence. These lesions, plaques, and thrombotic occlusions. They may be the clumps or platelets and which cause thrombus and coronary events in middle age and later life. And Indians, as I said, are a decade earlier at risk at a decade earlier compared to the Caucasians because of genetic factors. Recent increase in cardiovascular death in younger age is myocardial infarction, myocarditis, and sudden cardiac deaths. There have been concerns since the pandemic that they have big data sets from many countries like Australia, many countries like UK, Europe, USA. There have been increase in number of myocardial infarction. And we have to be open, like everything, we cannot attribute everything to lifestyle. Lifestyle, as I said, no cause is very strong. No single cause is very strong, but a combination of causes. And these are risk factors. So everything, sometimes if we are not open, science requires a detached view without any preconceived ideas. So there have been some data where, particularly since 2021-22, particularly in the young population, that is 24 to 44 years of age, USA data, there is a 80% increase in sudden deaths. And now from all over the world, the sudden death, all-cause mortality in particularly younger people are a matter of concern. So do we attribute everything to lifestyle? We have to really analyze the data. And as we know, there have been concerns that some of the interventions which we have used in the pandemic, like certain vaccines which are causing the spike protein, there have been reports of myocarditis. That has been well established, particularly in young males. So myocarditis also can increase the chances of heart failure, sudden death. It can cause scar tissue. So without this, either way, we cannot come to a decision. But we have to, because the rumors, they start, people who are, they create sensation. So for that, we have to dispel any any such concerns by hard data. So we can do it. We have a data set. We can do it. This is the number of cases and related to body mass index. So these graphs are showing the age standardized deaths and body mass index. So this is nothing but the higher trend is showing at the population level ecological correlation between the increase in body mass index. Body mass index is the indicator of obesity and the coronary events, years of life lost. So obesity and cardiovascular fitness, very strong association. A meta-analysis published in 2018 found that being unfit is more detrimental to survival than obesity. So as I said, exercise. Exercise is one thing, it reduces obesity. Second thing, exercise, physical activity, it increases the cardiac reserve and the pulmonary reserve, the lung reserve. So exercise can, even if a person is obese, the exercise can also act as a protective to heart disease. Patients who have low cardiovascular fitness but normal weight, the hazard ratio cardiovascular is double. So it is not that if you are not obese, so you need not exercise. I mean, this is the take-home message. Physical activity per se is beneficial. It reduces your chances of getting a heart attack by 50%. That 2.18 means that people who are not exercising are twice higher risk of getting a heart attack compared to those who exercise. And exercise doesn't have to be very rigorous. Just 30 minutes of brisk walking is good enough every day. So it is, apart from obesity, non-obese person also benefits from exercise. For patients who are fit but obese, their hazard ratio increases. So fit person obese, hazard ratio increased by 1.42, but not obese but not exercising, it is 2.18. So higher risk is not exercising. For patients who are both unfit and obese, the risk is 3 times. You are obese also and you are not exercising also. You have to increase the risk 3 times. So first you start exercise, at least you bring down. Then if gradually, if you control your diet also and exercise also, you control obesity also. So your lifestyle modification will bring down your getting a heart attack by 3 times. Overweight and obese fit person had 25% 40% increased mortality respect compared to normal weight individuals. So better to be non-obese and physically active. So these are the 2 paradoxes I was mentioning. Life is the art of drawing sufficient conclusion from insufficient premises. You see, we go by presumptions like high fat diet will always increase the incidence of heart disease. But there are 2 outliers, French paradox and Israeli paradox. The French paradox is that they have a very low coronary artery disease in spite of having a very high fat diet. France. And Susan Alport summarizes Israeli paradox. Israeli eat less animal fat and cholesterol, fewer calories than American, but they have comparable rates of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and many cancers. They have an ideal diet as far as American food pyramid is concerned, but far from ideal health. So Israel is having everything according to the book. Of course, they are obese, but diet. So that's why I said this dietary hypothesis is a very, very, the paradigm is being challenged. So what they have identified is, the first is that the hypothesis of linking saturated fat to coronary artery is not completely valid or is entirely invalid. And secondly is that saturated fat is valid, but that there are some additional factors which creates another coronary artery risk or protective. And one of the factors in some communities they have identified is that even communities with high fat diet, but if they have got very good social cohesion, the heart disease are less in such societies. And unfortunately, modern societies are becoming more and more lonely. People are lonely. They don't have very meaningful relationships, long-term relationships. So that also is a lifestyle which can increase the risk of heart disease. Newer culprits is the sugar is the silent killer. sitting is the new smoking, and physical activity, inactivity is a menace. And I would like to mention Professor Morris, who was a British researcher, epidemiologist. He established the physical inactivity, association of physical inactivity with coronary artery disease, heart attacks. He first took a cohort means people who can be followed up forward. He took he was a Britisher. He took the British bus conductors and bus drivers. Both are having more or less same socioeconomic status. So he followed British conductors in double deckers and bus drivers over 10 to 20 years. And he found that those bus drivers, they had twice a higher risk of coronary artery disease in the follow-up period compared to the bus conductors who had to walk up and down giving the tickets. That was, of course, 1960s, 1950s. Nowadays, they have automatic ticket. So he could put forth the hypothesis that those who are physically active, say at work, the conductors, so in real life also it can be extrapolated that physical activity protects against heart disease. So there was some criticism to his findings, saying that it may be the stress also, the drivers are having stress of driving or traffic and other things. So he followed up the study in the post offices. He took the postman who had to deliver and walk on foot or on bicycle to deliver the letters. He took that group and compared it with the cohort of postal clerks who are sitting behind a counter selling stamps. And again, the findings were similar. The postman had lesser heart disease over 10, 15, 20 years compared to people who are sedentary lifestyle, the postal clerk. So these were from pioneering studies. So this is about Professor Morris. So I said that we can have a comparative group epidemiologically or by research on large data set, because individual level it is very difficult to isolated number of say cases. A few person is a smoker, he gets it may be that even if he had not been a smoker, he would have got a heart. We know so many people ourselves in our day-to-day life. A person who is a heavy smoker doesn't get a heart attack, but a person who is a non-smoker may get a heart attack, even cancer. So that individual level cause effect is very difficult to establish. But when you see the large data set on a large number of people followed up or at the population level, it will become easier to identify the major risk factors. Similarly, childhood obesity is increasing nowadays. So childhood obesity also tracks into adult life, and it is very difficult to control obesity which tracks into adult life from childhood. You see, nowadays in the Western Hemisphere, almost more than 60% of people are overweight according to BMI, body mass index. And in our country, Asian and African countries, only 30% is also high, or 20%. One can say around 20% of Indians may be overweight compared to 60% of Americans or Europeans. But the middle class Indian is putting on weight, so there is a window of opportunity to control our lifestyle and not go into the same track as the Western countries. Then vaccine related, as I mentioned, again, here we can take the similar type of method as people, like we have got a good digital platform. We can follow up people who have taken the vaccine and those who have not taken the vaccine and follow them up and then see the rates of myocarditis or sudden death. As on today, we don't know anything, and there should be no unnecessary panic also. But since there are reports from all over the world, there have been post-mortems, and they have found, as I said, myocarditis, and they have found a vaccine spike protein from different organs. So, of course, the viral infection, COVID virus also causes the myocarditis, but we have to know which is the bigger risk. So there have been some studies are there which have been done post-mortem where they have identified, like if a person gets myocarditis due to the coronavirus, the full virus, the other virus particles or virus envelope will be found. And if you are finding only the spike, that the vaccine produces the spike, and if you are only finding the spike, it is more likely to be a vaccine-induced myocarditis rather than a virus-induced myocarditis. So our research is lacking. We are a large country. So two ways we can resolve the issue. Either way, we may be related to vaccine, may not be related to vaccine, but we have to know it because mRNA-based platforms are being proposed for other types of vaccine also. So this is one thing which I would stress, that I am not a basic researcher, I am an epidemiologist. So epidemiologically, I would like to have a large data set who have recovered from natural infection. Most of our people have recovered from natural infection. About 20 to 25% have not taken any single dose, or they can be identified from the Covaxin platform, and they can be followed up. Majority of people have taken the vaccine and followed up for long time or short time. So we would know whether there is any increased risk either way. So this is just it's not related to lifestyle, but the why I am saying is this, that this lifestyle should not become a red herring, that any new thing comes, and if the increased unnatural pattern is being observed, we should exclude that as a cause. Most likely, it may not be the vaccine at all, because there can be other stress, lack of job. People may have increased smoking, alcohol because of lockdown, unemployment. So those factors also can contribute to. So things are getting very, the waters are getting very muddy. So we have to have a good data set and then identify which can be the risk factors. So now this is actually main thrust of lifestyle is physical activity can benefit health, and overall all-cause mortality and 7.6% cardiovascular are attributable to physical inactivity. It's a large number considering our population size. The proportion of non-communicable disease attributable to physical inactivity range from 1.6% for hypertension to 8% for dementia. So it's not only heart disease, physical activity and lifestyle can prevent other diseases also and reduce the risk. A note on Morris, coronary heart disease and physical activity of work I have already discussed. Bus driver and postman. So this table gives you the all-cause relative risk and physical activity, which can be, you see, we don't have very clear cause effect. You do one thing and this will be a final panacea, but it reduces the risk at the population level. So as I said, that lifestyle is the actual ideal thing, but nowadays we are becoming a more passive generation. So there are certain pharmacological interventions which has come up for lifestyle disorder. So which are pharmacological solutions? Polypills is one such thing. It reduces cardiovascular disease risk, which contains combination of statins, cholesterol-lowering drugs, antihypertensive, and aspirin. From a population health standpoint, a polypill strategy is attractive because it seeks to minimize non-adherence. So you see, you have to take one pill and it contains three. And it's quite a bit contradictory, because recently the National Medical Commission was going against a fixed dose combination. And now you're having a polypill which has got a fixed three pills. So this is some of a paradox. Potential disadvantage is increased adverse events, difficulty in maintaining titration of doses. So we don't know the long-term adverse effects. So there is no pill for every ill, but we expect a pill for every ill. But there is an ill following every pill. However safe drug or intervention may be promoted, there always a remote chance of some adverse events. So I would suggest firstly lifestyle. Of course, individual cases, some people may require pharmacology. There may be many cases. Some people have got some endocrine disorders, some have genetic disorders which are giving rise to obesity or cholesterol level, which cannot be controlled by lifestyle. So those are the special cases which require special treatment. But across the board, I have my reservations. Then surgeries, of course, we know bariatric surgeries, and so again, the case selection has to be good. Lifestyle, from Hippocrates' time, we have been talking of lifestyle. Hippocrates have been talking of lifestyle. And after so many years, 2,500 years, we have come back to the same. that the answer lies more in lifestyle than pharmacological interventions. Quick fix results. I mean, there are certain inspirations. He's a famous singer. I think Adnan Sani. Adnan Sani was grossly overweight, and with just lifestyle, he did not take surgery. He did not go for surgery. Just lifestyle and physical activity. He reduced more than 100 kg, 120 kg. He's a Pakistani, I think, music composer and a singer, Adnan Sani. So if they can be done, these should be inspirations and role models. So these are to sum up, the presence of established risk factors is associated with cardiovascular disease, and good health is being emphasized. Promote 7 ideal: no smoking, no drinking, physically active, be physically active, eating a healthy diet, 5 helpings of fruits and vegetables, 1 helping is about 70 grams. Maintain a normal blood pressure by exercise or by medication under supervision of a practitioner. Maintain blood glucose level. Normal lipid profile, that is again debatable. Normal lipid profile, particular age range, it is beneficial, but after a certain age, it doesn't have much impact. That is what latest research shows. So again, it has to be under supervision of a practitioner and having an ideal weight. So these are some of the points I wanted to convey. Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure listening to you. Very well presented session. I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speaker for sharing his expertise and wisdom with us today. With that, we have a few questions from the audience to address. So my first question to you is, what innovative technologies and digital health tools can be leveraged by public health organizations to enhance heart disease prevention and management in the digital age?
It's a very good question, because we are reaching the age of artificial intelligence. We are in the era of computerized and telemedicine, digital platforms. So, 2 ways, both at the individual level and at the larger population level, where, as I said, in the population level, these digital tools can be very helpful for identifying patterns. Unfortunately, our data of all or non-communicable disease as well or communicable disease is not very good at a national level compared to some other countries. Other countries also, there are gaps. But with the digitalization of health, we can have better data. Like we can have better baseline data of heart diseases as they occur. We can stratify them by age, identify which age is getting. Of course, elderly getting is okay, but if we find a pattern where the younger people are getting, we have to investigate further. So that is a signal at the population level. At the individual level also, now we are having so many digital, like person can monitor his or her physical activity, number of steps a person takes or number of years. Then you have a digital blood pressure monitoring or glucose monitoring throughout the. So these are at the individual level, and scope is, there's a lot of scope in this, both at the population level and individual level. At the population level, of course, we have to take care of certain data privacy issues. So that is one thing. But at anonymous data, to see the patterns can be of great help to identify early trends, change in trends or increase or decrease.
Well answered. Moving on to the second question. How can public health agencies collaborate with local policymakers and urban planners to create environments that support active lifestyle and heart-healthy communities?
This is very important in our country, because public health policymakers and town planning have to work together. We don't have environmental friendly to facilitate physical activity. We don't have pedestrian walking spaces. If you are aware that they are at highest risk of getting killed in traffic accident, pedestrian are the highest risk. So there is a deterrent to take up walking. Then there are no cycle tracks. There are cycle tracks in some cities, but they just meet a dead end. They are not very conducive for cycling. So this level of has to be raised to town planning. Individual physicians or public health policy people have to be involved in town planning. Then other recreational playgrounds, parks, swimming pools, this should be accessible to the people. It's not only very costly clubs, gyms, they are accessible. And also schools also, they should have more playgrounds. And so it requires a interdisciplinary or multi involvement of all stakeholders. Then only we can have a physical activity can be accessible to even many people would like to do physical activity, but there is no space, particularly in our urban cities nowadays. Everybody cannot afford a gym or go to a swimming pool or a club. So we require user-friendly spaces.
Thank you for answering that. My third question to you is, what public health interventions are most effective in reducing the prevalence of obesity and diabetes, which are significant risk factors for heart diseases?
It is a uneven struggle actually, because the market forces are very strong, and right from the exposure to the media, to television, and to children right from childhood, there is promotion of unhealthy foods like sugar drinks, this even the sports persons, celebrity film stars, sports persons, they are also promoting these drinks. So it makes a major impact on. So these are some of the, like nowadays with great lobbying, we could make a statement not to advertise tobacco, but the similar type of we should have restriction on promoting these unhealthy foods, particularly sugary drinks, fast food, high salt, processed foods. So that is, as on today, it's very difficult because people got disposable income. And as I said, the middle class is expanding very fast, not only individually, but a number of people who are coming into the middle class and disposable income. Growing economies like India and Brazil. Brazil also has become very obese. In fact, the obesity in Brazil is almost like Western countries, 60%, the overweight percent. So we are, all middle classes also going. And as on today, we don't have any strong policies to educate the children and the people not to indulge. It's very tempting, particularly pastries, cakes full of sugar, and celebrations are very common in offices and schools. So I am not very comfortable with the way things are. I mean, it's I don't see until unless there is a general awareness and some sort of because market forces they make profit, so they will continue for some time till we are really obese.
Well said. It was an absolute pleasure listening to you. Definitely a lot to take away from this session. This brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee, for your time and effort in putting together this interesting session. I hope our audience enjoyed this session thoroughly. To our dear viewers, thank you so much for attending this session. We have had the privilege of hearing from a distinguished cardiologist who has shared valuable insights and knowledge about the pivotal role that lifestyle plays in preventing heart diseases. Do share any more questions if you have. Until we see you again, take care and happy Docplexing. Thank you.